This Jeep just rolled in with a potential blown head gasket. This is a 2012 with a 3.6, and it's puking antifreeze there. You open this up, smoking. Looks like we got some white garbage. I'm going to do a combustion test, compression test, all that stuff. And then if the clients want this done, we're going to pull off the heads. Hopefully they're not warped, and put new gaskets on and button this thing up. But it's not looking too good right now. It did run and drive over here, but as you can see, it is puking coolant everywhere. So stay tuned. All right, so this car came in for blown head gasket, right? It kind of did have the indicative signs. We had what looked like milkshake under there. The oil was all weird, and it was overheating quite bad. However, when I pulled the dipstick when it got here, it was overheating. You can kind of see a lot of fluid down here. It was spewing out of here. It was just kind of going all over the place and leaking everywhere. So I ended up replacing so what ended up happening was I would idle the car, and I did the, if you see here, I did the combustion test, and it never turned away from blue. So I kind of was thinking there's no combustion gases from inside the block or cylinder heads getting out into everywhere else. So I was like, it doesn't seem to happen. And then the exhaust and back, we weren't seeing any white smoke. So it kind of made me think, well, it could just be a bad thermostat and it's not allowing it to cool. I was able to idle it for 15 minutes and it wouldn't overheat. So the moment you put it on load, it overheated. Now, when it first came in, it would overheat. So I got a new thermostat, new water pump, new hood strut, because this thing fell on my head, and a new radiator cap. I did the easy things, the cheap things first, and put in new coolant. What then happened was I could idle it and it would never overheat, except when I put it under hard load, it would overheat. So I took off the intake here, took out the coil packs and spark plugs, and scoped each cylinder. If you see here, I'll post some pictures. They looked great, actually. I was able to scope down into the valves, and those were dry too. So everything's looking really good right now. I'm starting to put it back together. I just wanted to give an update. But then what I did was I did a pressure test, and I was trying to see where any fluid could be leaking out. And what I ended up finding out was it would hardly hold pressure at all, right? At 17, 18, 19 PSI, it wouldn't hold pressure. I couldn't find it going anywhere. I was scoping the cylinder, scoping the intake. It wasn't leaking out here. It wasn't the radiator, nothing. But I kept hearing gurgling, burbling, kind of just fluid getting pushed out and air escaping. So I was able to, and it sounded like it was coming from the back brake booster. So I have some soapy water, but what ended up happening was the heater core is right here. Okay, and the heater core is in the firewall, behind the firewall, and you have to remove the whole dash inside, all the electronics, everything to get to it. But I can hear it, and I would go inside into the footwell, and I could hear the burbling, the gurgling, everything, and it wouldn't hold PSI. So what I did was, let's try to isolate the issue. So I took this pipe here that goes to the heater core, and I routed it in and out. The out comes into the block here. So I just hooked up my own hose and I isolated. I took out the heater core and I pressurized it. Now this has been sitting for at least 15, probably 20, 25 minutes now actually. And it's holding right at 17 PSI. This is an 18 PSI system and it's good. So I have now isolated this to the heater core behind the firewall. I am now buttoning this up. So this expensive taking off the heads, taking off the intake, taking off all this to fix the gaskets back here, and then putting it all back on. You have 2 cams here, 2 here. You'd have to make sure it's timed up. It's a very intensive project, which I was going to do, but just a little bit of investigation means we don't need to take apart any of this. This is very easy. It's just the intake sitting over here, right? and put that back on. But yeah, the hose isolated it. So I think what I'm going to do now is put it all back together with the bypass still in, run it, and see if I can overheat it. If it does not overheat, I know that that is the problem. I'm already 90% sure, 99% sure, but just for the client's sake, I want to make sure that this is the correct diagnosis moving forward. So I'm going to finish buttoning this up, putting on the coil packs and the intake, and I'm going to start it up, see what happens. Even though I already think I know what's going to happen, but yeah, doesn't hurt to double check, triple check everything, guys. I've put everything back. It's now been 45 minutes and we're still in the dark, in the black. That's, if you guys can read that, 17 to 19 PSI. So this is system with my jerry rig here has been holding just fine. What I'm gonna do now is start this, let it warm up. I'm gonna take this off and put on the regular cap as if I've just completely bypassed the heater core. Wait about 15-20 minutes, see what happens, and then let's see if this has isolated it enough to point us in the right direction. So just gonna undo this, bleed it first. There's a little bleeder back here. I don't know if you bleed that. You unscrew that, that bleeds the cooling system, so you can take this out without it blowing up on you. So I'm just gonna do that and start her up. So the client's just about to come back for their car, and I just wanted to show you kind of what I ended up doing. It was the heater core, as we all know. I ran this cord, this tube back here. It changes diameter here and goes back here. So I just kind of cleaned this up, made it real nice. They're able to drive it for a little bit, at least back home. I am not wanting to do the heater core that sits back here, having to take out all the interior. That's just not something I enjoy. So I am passing on doing any more work on this specific vehicle for this specific issue. But I guess it kind of makes sense when this lower tube down here was pulsing, because it had so much air in the system, because there's a leak back here and it was sucking in air. There's not enough pressure, so therefore the thermostat's not opening to send coolant through this radiator and circulate through the vehicle. So it was getting hot. I circumvented the heater core to be able to isolate the problem and get it out of the equation. And so now the car just won't have defrost or heat in the vehicle. But down here in Florida, that's not always a necessity, but I did advise them they should have that replaced, obviously, for all the reasons stated. So anyway, thank you for watching this. This is just a little side project I did. Again, new water pump, thermostat, radiator cap, hood strut, and we isolated the problem to this, and on to the next one.